Okay, it is now 5:35, and this is the Monday, January 3rd, 2022 meeting of the City of Palm Springs Architectural Review Committee. Mr. Knoll, please take roll call.
Member Thompson,
I'm here.
Member Walsh,
Here.
Member Payline,
Here.
Member McCoy is excused, Member Lockyer,
Here.
Member Dozy,
Here.
Vice Chair Rotman,
Present.
and Chair Jakeway.
Here,
We have a quorum.
thank you. And since Mr. McCoy is not joining us today, Dan Thompson will be a voting member of the items on today's agenda. May we have a staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Yes, Chair and committee members, our agenda was posted on Tuesday, December 28th, 2021. So our meeting has been posted in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? I'd like to bring up one point and kind of poll the committee on the consent item for the row house cannabis sign at the north end of town. I don't have any problems with the signs on the building, but the sign they have on the monument sign uses a different font for the lettering than the other signs. Is that enough of an issue that we should discuss it, or would we leave that on the consent agenda? Any opinions?
Well, I had a couple of questions about it. Not that I would not vote in favor of it, but I did have a couple of questions about what was submitted.
Okay, we'll take that one off the consent agenda. Any other revisions to the agenda? May we have a motion to accept the agenda as revised?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that's within this committee's purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time that that item is presented. If somebody would like to speak on an item not on today's agenda, you may speak now. You will have 3 minutes. Mr. Newell, do you know if we have anybody waiting to speak?
No direct requests to us at the department, but if there's anyone on the phone who wishes to speak at this time, please unmute your microphone. Doesn't appear we have anyone, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll move ahead. We're going to proceed to the minutes of the last meeting, which was the December 7th, 2021. Are there any revisions from the committee of those minutes? Mr. Rotman?
Yeah, just a note that neither I or you were at that meeting, so we have to excuse ourselves from voting on this item.
Correct, thank you. Do we have a motion to accept? Oh, excuse me, no, we don't. Because that's part of the consent agenda. The other item that would be part of this next vote would be item number 2, Alana Coffin for a land use permit and waiver to continue the use of an enlarged parklet located at 368 North Palm Canyon Drive, Zone CBD. So those two items, number 1 and 2, are on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Dan. Second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
so we will move to item number 3.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, who was the second on that motion?
Me, David.
Mr. Walsh, thank you.
I'm sorry, Chair. Do we have to vote separately on items 1 and 2 on the consent because of substances? Both you, me, and Dan Thompson were not at that meeting.
Oh,
No, we don't need to do separate motion or separate motions. We'll just note the abstentions for the 3 of you.
And are there enough people to vote on that left?
We would need
You have four, you
so-
have four of
Yeah.
the five. So is that adequate?
Yeah, that would be adequate.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move now to item number 3, the row house for a sign permit for 2 main signs placed on an existing building and 1 sign placed on an existing monument sign located at 2500 North Palm Canyon Drive. We have a staff report.
Yes. All right, so my applicant, the row house is requesting 2 main signs on one facing North Palm Canyon Drive and one facing the parking lot within the shopping center. And the third sign will be placed on an existing monument sign right on North Palm Canyon Drive. So this is a elevation of the building on North Palm Canyon at the top and an elevation of the part of the building that faces the parking at the bottom. They are proposing a 14.97 square foot main sign. 2 of them, actually. They're going to be the exact same sign facing different directions. So this is what they'll look like when they're placed. And this will be the sign on the monument as well. I believe the difference is the colors. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And then this is some examples of other signs in the shopping center. They kind of all resemble the same type of signage within the shopping center. So staff is recommending approval as submitted. The applicant is available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alex. Does the committee have any questions for the staff? Robert, did you have some questions you wanted to, who directed them to?
Yeah, it was more to the applicant, actually.
Okay, applicant is present. Would the applicant like to give us a presentation on this submittal?
You guys hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, cool. Sorry, it was hard to get my phone to work. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's I'm the applicant. Ask me any questions you got.
Okay, Robert?
Yeah, so on the details of the sign, of the side view, on both the same detail on both sheets 2 and 3, you've got a top angle that's 1.5 inches and a bottom angle at 2, which would mean that the sign would be sloped upward. Is that a mistake or is that intentional?
I don't know. It sounds like a mistake, maybe. I have, I think Visible Graphics, the sign company I hired to do all the plans and to draft the signage. I think they're in here too. She's supposed to be, so maybe she can answer that question.
Okay.
Karina, are you in here?
Yes, I'm present.
Okay, the question from the committee member was that it appears, but by looking on sheet 3 at the section through the sign, that the bottom of the sign projects out from the wall further than the top of the sign. So the sign would not be parallel to the wall. Was that the intention, or are the dimensions incorrect?
No, the dimensions are incorrect.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
anything else, Robert?
No, that was it. Just the
My
comment.
comment that I wanted to make for the committee to discuss is when we look at the monument sign, the font of the lettering is totally different than all the other signs on the monument. I don't know if that's a concern. Now, as we just looked at the pictures that Alex presented of the existing signs within the center, they are all different without question. So there isn't a consistency to the lettering or style within the center. Does anybody on the committee have any concerns about the sign, the monument sign not being the same on all the different signs?
I think in my in my opinion, with the background being the same on the monument sign and the color of the font being the same as the other signs on there, I don't find it terribly offensive, Tom. If this one had a red background and the rest of them were nice white backgrounds with black lettering, I think that would start to get out of place, and you could see that as other companies follow suit, it would get out of hand pretty quickly. Maybe if there's some protocol that they're establishing, like they all have the same background and they all the same color font, then I don't find it terrible.
Okay, I can agree with those comments. Is there any other discussion anybody has, or do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve with the comments we made.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Ryan, for being here. Okay, we are going to move now to new business. Item number 4, Stack Family Trust, owner for a major architectural review application for the construction of a 4,122 square foot single family house on a hillside lot located at 2368 City View Drive in the Desert Palisades specific plan. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, Chair, let me get this started here. Right, can you see the opening slide?
Yep.
Okay.
But we see
So-
both slides.
You can see both slides. That's interesting.
The preview.
Yes, the title sheet and the rendering.
What about now?
That's better.
Just your title sheet.
Okay, great. And it's full screen. Okay, great. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is a house in Desert Palisades, lot number 53, which is on City View Drive. Here is a rendering of the house. It is 4,122 square feet on a 17,100 square foot lot. As you know, City View Drive slopes from west to east, and the house will sit here as it is presented. It's a linear house with glass on the front and other elements, which we'll get into the details of the architecture in just a second. So it's the Stack family house. What I'd like to show is the site plan showing how the house is sited. It is located out of the no build easement and then set back another 10 feet with a garage that faces the street. As you know, the Desert Palisades guidelines discourages front-loaded garages, and staff express that to the applicant, and they will be able to give you a reason as to why the garage is remaining as is. On the east side, the house is set 7.5 feet back out of the no build easement, and then also additional 10 feet. Moving on to the site plan, the floor plan. It is a 4-bedroom house with in a U shape with a dining, great room, living room, kitchen, facing west with the pool in the inner courtyard here. The building architecture, as we mentioned, it meets the 18-foot slope height limit. And as you see, the garage faces a street, and then the natural grade slopes west to east. There's a clear story window on the above the great room. And then the rear shows windows and sliders to the south views. Once again, looking at the house being mostly sliders and glass. There's a section in the packet that was forwarded to the ARC showing heights and natural grade. On the roof, there will be solar panels that are replaced to the north in this area here. In landscaping for the property is rather minimal. The proposing to use Desert Museum and other agaves and cactus plants located throughout the site, and the lighting plan shows the landscaping and the lighting, and the proposed lighting will light the landscaping. Grading permit, there is grading that's proposed on the site, obviously, and the grading plan is with our engineering department right now for plan check review. And looking at materials, the proposed exterior will be a stucco, a La Havre, which is a great color, windows and sliders with dark anodized frames. Brick columns are Angelus Precision block in a sand color, and then fascias are dark bronze with eaves that have ipe wood underneath. Vertical battens in the garage door will also be wood elements. Once again, this is an elevation photo simulation of what the house will look like. So Chair, we evaluated against the Desert Palisades design guidelines, and the project is before you for comment and review.
Thank you, Glenn. Do we have any questions from the staff, from the committee for the staff?
Oh, and Chair, the applicant is here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. So then let's have the applicant please give us their name, address, and you have 10 minutes to give us a presentation of the project.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jami Stack. Thanks for having us today. I've got Chris Wallace with me as well. I don't have a presentation per se. You have our paperwork and the application. I heard a question early about Desert Palisades and the architectural committee, and this plan has been through the architectural committee at DP before it was presented to you. I think really the question that I should address, apologize, seems like the elephant in the room is the forward-facing garage. So if it's okay with you, I'll speak to that and give you our rationale behind that.
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you. So let me start by saying we're huge fans in the neighborhood. The vision in the neighborhood, the architectural and site plans are really a primary reason we decided to build there. This will be my primary residence. It's a dream neighborhood for me, and so we're super thrilled to be part of the neighborhood. I feel like we've really universally embraced those guidelines and with the house design, and we worked really hard to get the garage around the corner so it wasn't forward facing. But unfortunately, due to a combination of reasons, we really weren't able to do it. The house is designed in place and oriented in a way that leverages the valley views and the mountain view sheds. We worked really hard, and I think there's a house a couple lots below us that has a very similar lot. We worked really hard to maintain the natural drainages, especially on the north side of the lot. And as it turns out, it's a much more significant drainage than we realized when we initially bought the lot and designed the house. So we worked really hard to keep all of that intact, and I think we've met that objective. And you know, there's just the natural reality of the lot and the setback dimensions. We have done a couple of things to mitigate the visual impact of that forward-facing garage. We rotated the house counterclockwise as much as possible, like hard up on the setbacks in both directions. So the house actually tilts away from the road visually on the garage side. I don't know exactly how many degrees, but it's definitely less visible. The road, as you're going up the road there, the road turns to the left away from the garage. So I think visually it has, it makes less of an impact on the eye when you see it. And I think you saw that in one of the plans that one of the shots that Glenn shared earlier. And we lowered the house about 2.5 feet, I think exactly 2.5 feet from the balance of the rest of the roof line. Both of those things were efforts on our behalf to minimize the impact, the visual impact of the garage in the neighborhood. You know, I think it's, you know, it's obviously self-evident in the language. The development standard language uses the word should instead of must on the garage. I don't know how many houses you've looked at in there and how many lots you've looked at so far, but obviously there are huge variances and lots of unique character in each one of those lots. And I think some of the lots very easily will support, either due to size or orientation, a forward-facing garage. And we really did try hard to get it done ourselves, because I do think aesthetically it would be more pleasing not to have a garage in the front of the house. But we just, considering the house and the house design that we, you know, it's my dream house, it's the house I want to build, and the view sheds and the angles and the drainages, we just couldn't find a way to make it work. As you can see from the design, we're hard up on the perimeters of the lot and setbacks as it stands right now. So, you know, there's obviously been some concessions already, and some precedent set already about with a few of the houses in the neighborhood, based again, I think, on the really unique characteristics and the challenges associated with building in DP. I think those challenges are interesting and cool, and it's one of the things that gives the neighborhood such character. But, you know, it also requires a little bit of flexibility in certain circumstances, and we think we have one of those.
Jamie, do you want to describe the materials?
The garage materials?
No, the house materials and the landscaping.
I think the landscaping is consistent with everything we've seen in DP so far. It's native landscaping. We've worked really hard to minimize the impact of the lot, the way we're going to try to grade it and build the house. I actually think we'll probably end up, based on what I've seen so far, with less hardscaping and more just natural landscaping that's in there. So we're following the guidelines with, you know, that we've seen in the architectural plans with native plants. And the only major things that I think we'll plant will be in that northwest corner back where the pool is, as screens for the pool. And we're actually going to try to do the screening for the pool without any walls or structures at all. So I think, again, from an impact perspective, we're really trying to have a light touch in the neighborhood. Our house doesn't look exactly like the other houses that are being built in there, but I think hopefully it's going to be a positive addition. There's a lot of glass in the house. You referenced the stucco and the brick. I think we put stucco in there. We actually, there's a consideration, and I don't know if we'd have to come back to you to talk about it, but those panels right now that we have laid out as stucco, we found some really interesting cement material to use in there as well, but it's really hard to get a hold of right now. So we've decided to go with stucco for the time being, and somebody will have to guide me if we don't do stucco and we do that cement material, if we'll have to come back for approval. If we have to, we will. There's a lot of glass in the house. As you see from the designs, the entire living room, you'll see through glass from the west side to the east side, or east to west. I think there's about 30 feet of glass wall in the living room. So I think it's really going to look great in the neighborhood. It's low, very natural colors. You know, the rock in there has varying degrees of sort of grays and tans and light colors, and I think the aesthetic will look great. I've never done a presentation on anything like this before. It's my house, so it's the first time I've done this. So I don't know if you're looking for something in particular, but I do feel like the house design and the aesthetic and the light footprint it'll be different. The bar is going to be set really high in that neighborhood, of course, and certainly some of them will be much higher than what we're setting here today, but I do think it'll be a positive addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Jamie. That was a good presentation. At this point, we would open the hearing for public comments from the audience. Is there anybody, David, do we know that's here to give public comments on this particular project?
No direct requests, Mr. Chair, but if anyone is in the meeting that would like to speak, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself. Doesn't appear we have anyone, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. At this point now, we will see if the committee has any questions specifically for the applicant. Committee members? I have one question. In the material board or material pages, there's one that calls out vertical battens adjacent to front door. I haven't been able to find that on the plans or the elevations. Jamie, could you explain where that is?
Yeah, as you face the front door is facing, if your back's to the south and you're facing north, to the left will be that gray stucco. Let's see if we can.
Let me get to it here.
Yeah.
Oh, I see you've got an inset area.
Yeah, and to the right, I'd like to integrate to the right of the entryway. So I'm not mousing here, but Glenn is. It's to the left, Glenn, of this brick column. That's the yeah. It's to the left of that is the door, and to the right, two over.
Immediately left. There you go. One more.
One more. That blue thing is a door.
There you go. Yep.
And that panel where Glenn is mousing right now, up and down, will be those wooden battens. So you'll see those if you're standing like toward the garage, which I think.
So the panel inside the porch, but the portion of wall facing the street would be the same material as the other, either plaster or cement.
Correct.
Great.
Correct. Yep. So those are the only two places that we're planning, that in the garage, to be those vertical battens right now. I think we've got enough going on with the gray stucco and the brick and a couple of pieces of wood like that.
I have a question about the windows. If we could look at that elevation, Glenn, that you just had.
Yes.
There's 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms that face the street, and they each have fairly narrow but tall windows. In the drawings, it doesn't show any divisions or mullions or anything within those windows, though on your material list, they're called out as single hung. So is that true that there'll be a horizontal bar somewhere in these windows and the window will operate by moving up and down?
Correct. So it's not reflected there in the drawing, but they are.
And those will have screens on them.
They will have screens.
So
yes.
to create privacy for the bathrooms, is it clear glass that you're going to have window covering, or will it be obscure glass?
It will be clear glass with window covering.
Okay.
That's my intent.
And I like the way you have the windows set in so that screens and things are all off the front surface of the home. Committee members, any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have some questions.
Sure, Robert.
So how are you going to handle trash and the enclosure for it? I don't see anything on the site plan calling that out.
Then that's an omission. There should be a low wall to the northwest corner of the house, back aft part of the house, northwest corner.
So just kind of where the pool equipment is, but on the west face.
Yeah, actually, this right now where we have the pool equipment under this awning that you see right here, I actually think the intent is to put the pool equipment and the trash behind where you see the door opening into the garage with a low retaining wall there. So that's an omission that it's not there. I think we went back and forth when we rotated the house to get the garage away from the street. It created room for us to put that over on that side of the house.
And so you'll have some sort of hardscape that will connect to the driveway or the street along that side of the garage.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not shown here, so we'll need to, if you need us to create something that shows that, I will.
And in your presentation, you mentioned about the pool enclosure and that you're going to try and do it naturally. What exactly does that mean?
Well, if you look in that northwest corner, what I was trying to articulate was that we don't intend to have any walls back in there. This is landscaping will go in that northwest corner, sort of around the perimeter of the hot tub. And our intent is to have this open area. There's a small patio you see here and a small patio under the eaves that's adjacent to the living room. Our intent is to have this area in between those two to be natural landscaping, predominantly rocks, sand, dirt, planting, but not to have a tremendous amount of hardscaping in there. I envision a little trail working our way from the patio to the pool.
So you don't want to have any kind of fence around the pool. Are you going to do a pool cover? Is that what your intent is?
It is, yes.
Okay, all right. And then on the east side of the house, you have that long terrace patio. And at the southeast part of it, it's quite a bit of a drop to the natural grade. Are you planning a railing along that?
I'd prefer not to have one, but if it's a necessity for us to do, we'll do something that's sheer, whether it's cabling or plexiglass glass. I don't know the code, frankly, for the height there, but I would prefer to have it. It's not going to be a huge seating area. It's just intended to have enough space to be under the eaves, a little bit of coverage there, but a couple of chairs facing, I guess that would be to the south and east.
Okay.
So that would be my intent. I'd prefer not to have any railing there at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You know, if we need to, we could build up, I guess, the dirt slightly higher up against the foundation as well.
Thank you.
Hi, John.
Chairman,
Yes, John.
just a couple questions. I'm looking for your HVAC, you know, your roof profiles and section and an elevation look very thin, very elegant. How does that integrate? How does your HVAC integrate with your structural system?
Chris, I'll need to defer to you on that.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we plan on using cassette units in the house, so there won't be any ductwork. You know, so the joists don't need to be cut open, and we could kind of keep a low profile like that.
And maybe end up softening some spaces down or something, because you're going to have the unit.
Yeah, those cassette units are pretty small in a mini split system that can fit between joists. It can fit in a 12-inch rafter. But yeah, if we need to run anything, we would soffit inside the house.
Okay, that may be in its future. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a couple things that I see that are missing from the presentation, and they're fairly important things. On the landscape plan, you show the planting legend, but you don't show graphically any plants on the site. So we don't know where trees are, where other things are, and that's pretty critical. And that ties into my second comment, which is the grading plan shows some pretty significant slopes on the two opposite corners of the lot, behind the pool and on the other corner outside the living room. And there's no reflection of retaining walls or garden walls or planting areas. And I think those are all pretty critical. And then on the grading plan, there's a long horizontal something, and I'm not really sure what that is. So I think we need to see more detail and more specifics on both the grading plan and the landscape plan.
I'll address the landscaping plan first. If you look in the top left of sheet L1, there's a legend that kind of shows each plant. And then those plants are kind of spread out and located on the site plan on the same page.
On my landscape plan, there are no plants shown. I only see grade lines.
Same with mine.
Here also.
Oh.
I looked at the lighting plan and it
Go
shows
back one.
some plants.
Yeah, this is the plan that we have, Chris.
Huh. All right.
It does show some plants and boulders on the lighting plan.
Oh, you know what? It looks like I have the same legend on mine, and it looks like when I converted it to a PDF, it didn't transfer over. It should be to the left of where it says the size on the legend up at the top left, Glenn. On that legend, those, oh yeah, nothing got transferred. Yeah, that's a problem. So yeah, when I converted to a PDF, it looks like it didn't get transferred. The actual plant from on the legend or on the plot plan. So that's something I'd have to get back to you guys.
And I think it would help us when you bring in that more complete landscape plan, that you show the new revised grades that are shown on the precise grading plan, so that we know all those grades in those two corners especially will really affect your ability to plant material in that area.
Yeah, that should be on there too, but maybe that didn't transfer either. So I will have to get Glenn that. And then on the grading, was that the same thing? Did you say anything more about the grading plan, or was that?
No, just the fact that it's because of the small scale, it's really hard to interpret it. And I would guess that there might be some retaining walls, maybe just made out of stone, maybe made out of CMU, but something to kind of capture the transition of the new grades to the old grades.
Yeah, that's kind of what Jamie was trying to get away from. He really doesn't want to do retaining walls and trying to keep that natural landscape and trying to do with boulders and rocks and things like that. And that's his goal.
Well, it certainly could be done with boulders. I just think we just need to see it.
Need to show it. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I really appreciate the fact that it would be mostly boulder so that it doesn't have an impact.
Yeah.
Are you talking, Tom, specifically, sorry, in that southeastern corner? The one on the road, because that's where it's steep, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
And also the northwest corner as it transitions to the lots above or below, I can't tell.
Yeah, that's pretty minimal back. I think that'll be easy to do with boulders, but we can definitely, obviously the landscaping plan here is basic. And if that's something we need to spend more time on integrating with rocks to show those transition areas, we certainly can do that.
Well, I think it's a tough thing to review right now, because in general, I totally get the concept of keeping the landscape as natural as possible, adding to the existing plant palette, but not overwhelming the site. And really, until when you're on such a hillside site with so many rocks and boulders, a lot of stuff is going to have to be finalized in the field. But at least for us to understand your intent, with the knowledge that it probably will be modified, but still, if we need for you to show us what your intent is and a little more of the quantity of plants that you think you'd be putting in.
Tom, could I add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you look at that lighting plan, it does show, quite a few numbers of boulders and so forth. And I think if the civil engineer integrated those boulders into his grading plan, so some of those contours might die into the boulders and the boulders become the retaining factor. And so I think those two need to go together. I did have a question on the lighting plan itself.
Yeah.
There was 48 of, it's model number 16017 AZT lights. And again, at first when I saw the symbol, I thought maybe they were pathway lights, but they're actually a smaller type accent light. And I guess my question is, so they're not really providing light to the ground surface along the pathways, or is the intent of those to light plants or rocks? Or I'm just concerned about having too many uplights up on the hillside. I'm assuming the major lights are for the larger trees, the circle, but then the square ones there's 48 of those around the site. You know, kind of what are they lighting?
Well, I can't, I apologize. I can't talk specifically to the lighting plan, but I can tell you the intent with the lighting is there would be some shadows created off landscaping and rocks, and we certainly would need lighting along the pathways in between the pool and the back of the house and the sidewalk in the front. But we specifically actually have taken lights like out of the eaves to minimize the amount of light there. And I live in the mountains predominantly, and I actually am an anti-light pollution guy. So the intent is not to have a glowing house on the hill, regardless of what this says. I don't know if 48 is a big number or a small number.
Yeah. Well, I think what my concern is, if you look at the fixtures depicted on the sheet, you know, they're both kind of uplights that you would use.
Yep.
One's a larger one is an accent light for plants. So I'm not sure how much you'll get to light the pathway, even though they show them kind of along the pathway. So you may want to consider more of a pathway, or even there are those flush mounted lights that go right on the ground that could cast light across the walkway, or connecting areas from the back patio to the pool. I think maybe that could be looked at as well.
Well, I think it's clear that we owe you a little bit more in the form of a landscaping plan, and that we can do that at the same time and give you a more refined view of the lighting plan as well. I don't know the protocol here, like where we're going to end up, and if I'll have a list of things we need to do that create a contingency for approval, et cetera. So you'll have to guide me on that, but you know, it's certainly something we can and will do. There's no intent at all for this to be a lit up monument. Far from it. It's a big glass house.
Okay, thank you.
Any
I
other
had one
comments?
other thing. As I'm looking at the topography, you know, we got basically from one corner of the house to the other, it's about a 6 to 7 foot grade change. And I can kind of see it in the elevations, but I'm almost thinking we need to see a section or two to see how you're addressing the 6 to 7 foot grade change from one end of the house to the other. So if we're going to get a couple more drawings, it might be good to get a section or two to see how that's kind of handled.
I second that motion. I think that'd be a great idea. Other comments?
See, can I elaborate on that one for a minute? When I look at, Glenn, are you able to bring up the, I guess we're using the landscape plan as a site plan? Yeah, so when
This plan here?
Yeah, that's good. When I look at this and I see, like, I know what the proposed contours are because I can remember them roughly from the grading plans. And there's a 2-to-1 slope down at this angle, and yet I know that this is at 964. And down here, if I zoom in, what is that contour down there, Glenn?
Oh, that's as far as I can zoom in.
Okay,
I think it's 951, Sean.
Yeah, so this is 13 feet of elevation change pretty damn quickly. And as I look at these boulders and their placement with each other, and just having some experience on these hillside projects, I look at all this void in here in between boulders. And I just know that it's never going to look like that. And so in line with keeping, same at this northwest corner. I felt like I agreed with Tom that this needed some addressing and looking at and how this whole corner of the site is going to work to retain what's trying to flow down this way. And same, this is retaining all this area up here and potentially creating a walkway around here where you don't need a railing. Hard to imagine that you can really think this through without doing more site sections and modeling and investigation and thinking about what those boulders are actually going to look like. Because I think it's going to be more like 100% coverage of boulders in here and then trying to carve out tree pockets within that, which I think is going to be somewhat difficult, but not impossible. Or planting pockets, if not tree pockets. It's just hard to imagine that you could pull that off with this level of planning and have it look anything like this is proposed right here. And I can see that in the one rendering view. I'm pulling up that sheet right now. I see even more coverage of boulders and there's some pocket creation in there, but I don't know that they've gotten quite down the 13 feet that this is proposing in such a short span, and minding that 7.5 foot no build easement that's not really supposed to be touched. So there's even less real estate on that side of the property to achieve what you're trying to do. Sometimes it's not even the width of that patio you're proposing, particularly at the northern end of that east side patio there. Sorry, maybe there is a bit more, about 12, 13 feet at that northern end. Anyway, can I keep going on with some other comments?
Yes, please.
Yep. So I think we're in agreement that there's some things missing here that we'd like to see more of. So I'm just going to elaborate on that a little bit.
Okay.
Your sheet A2, the lighting plan, and kind of surprised other folks haven't brought it up yet, but I will here. There's some lighting placement on there, particularly on the outside. And so I think you've got a lot of neighbors that are going to be downhill from this project, like the entire city of Palm Springs, and looking up at your lighting here. And I think we could use a little more data on what types of lights you're proposing and what temperature they are and how many lumens they're going to put out. I'm looking at your sheet A2 in the east side of the building, and there's 4 lights that, I can't imagine that you'd actually make those decisions when you go to place them in the field, because I don't see that they're really aligned with much of anything other than covering. Maybe you had a requirement to have 4 lights spread out over there. So I think those need to be adjusted and placed a little better. And then
You're talking, just to clarify, Sean, you're talking about the lights under the eaves?
That's correct. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. So the eave mounted, ceiling mounted, I'm
Yeah.
assuming they're recessed lights on the east
Yes.
side of the building.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're also going to have some neighbors uphill from you. So I'd be curious what all these other outdoor lighting items are. And you said yourself, you were referencing the landscape lighting and how your intention was to not have an obscenely lit landscape, but you said it was a glass box, and so I think it would be nice to be mindful of that, and it is going to be a glass box, and people are going to be looking right in and up at it, and so I wonder what thinking through that interior lighting and how that reads from the exterior as you look through this glass box from down the hill slightly would be beneficial to both you and your neighbors up there.
Are you talking about lighting with that? So I get the question about, or the comment and the need for us to provide more detail on the lighting plan externally for the landscaping and under the eaves. So check, noted, no problem. We'll do that. The question about the glass house, I don't are you suggesting you need something about how I'm gonna internally light the house? Or what I'm
I'm
gonna
not
do
trying
while
to-
I'm in the house to screen it so we're not on display? I just want to make sure I understand the question so I
Yeah.
can address it.
Yeah.
It's been an active point of discussion in our household, no question.
Mhm.
And there's obviously positives and negatives. We intend to have translucent shading, built-in blinds that drop from the rafters internally. So there you will see some light when you're standing outside looking in. But we obviously at some point in the evening don't expect that we're going to be on display in the house. My wife wouldn't really go for that, I don't think.
Okay.
But I
guess-
don't know if you need me to elaborate more on that. If you need more detail, our intent is to be pretty light in our touch here. We intend to be outside a lot. I want to see the shadows of the mountains. All of that requires us to have some light to walk around, but not so much that it pollutes our ability to see. So,
For sure. And so let me try to answer your question here. So as I look at this plan that almost tries to be all encompassing, and I'm not sure that it can. It's got windows and doors and dimensions for construction here, and it's trying to tackle lighting. And it seems like as I look at this plan and I think to myself, you're going to have a lot of it's a hillside lot, right? So you have the disadvantage of having people looking down on your roof. And so I've got more questions on that. And people are going to be looking up at what you've done on the exterior of your building and the interior of your building. And whether or not they have the right to get into your business on the interior of the building or not, I'm just going to ask the question anyway. And I'm going to say, well, if you're trying to create that nice glow that I think you were alluding to in your landscape plans, and I look at this lighting plan, I go, well, and like take bedroom 2, for example. Do you really need the 5 ceiling? And I don't know the answer to this. And maybe the answer is yes, you need all 5 ceiling lights and you're going to put them wherever you put them. Or is it something where maybe you want to light the head wall of the bed and highlight an accent wall behind the bed or an art wall there and produce that nicer glow that I think is the direction you were trying to go with your landscape lighting, rather than just looking through and seeing what to me appears like a little bit of a haphazard layout in the lighting plan now. And maybe that's fine. You've got enough lights shown and you're going to kick that can down the road and you're going to develop that further once the framing's going on and be a little more mindful of your lighting placement then. But I'm asking the question now because it's a hillside development and it's something I would be concerned with. And I think it's something that you're going to be concerned with sooner or later if you don't think about it now. So bedroom 2 comes to mind. That certainly that east exterior ceiling overhang comes to mind. I'm sure you'll have a neighbor or two, and including yourself as you look through the glass corridor on the north side of guest bedrooms 3 and 4. And I go, there's 6 or 7 lights along that corridor, and I think they're doing their job. Some of them are hidden by solid walls, some are not, but could that be better at just highlighting art and creating more of that glow you're looking for through that space and highlighting art on the wall? Or do they really need to be just 6 evenly spaced lights? So I guess it's just a comment to be mindful of lighting. People are going to see it.
Yeah, it's a good comment, and I appreciate the feedback. So I think we can tune that if it's appropriate for us to do for this process, appropriate and necessary to do for this process. But it's you obviously have some experience in the neighborhood, and so it's good feedback.
I'm just going to keep going on here. The windows, so when you're talking about these single hung windows, that's a Fleetwood product also in the same aluminum? That's a question.
Yeah, Chris will have to answer that.
Yes, that's the intention is to keep it all Fleetwood.
Mm-hmm. I think on the next go around, that ought to be represented on the elevations and I'm just, it's another rhetorical question here, but are you sure you really want to do that? And the only reason I'm throwing that out there is I think if it were drawn accurately on the drawings, you'd see that it about doubles the frame size around the operable portions of those windows. And I think it's going to dramatically reduce the glass box effect that you're looking for. And I wonder if there's other options that you might explore to achieve your egress requirement or fresh air requirement or preferences in some other configuration besides a single hung window. So again, that's rhetorical, just throwing it out there, but I think would behoove you and us to see what those actually look like if they were drawn accurately to their true frame dimensions, what that does to the frame.
Sure.
Mhm. When you're talking about cassette units in the ceiling cavity, and I don't know that I see a ton of, or you have building sections on sheet A6 here. I think if you're going to have cassette units and start dropping ceilings, it's going to affect windows potentially. And I wouldn't mind seeing a little more development around the HVAC plans.
Yeah, we wouldn't be dropping the ceilings for the cassettes. They'd fit inside the rafters, but we can definitely provide some more detail on that.
If so, won't those units also have a condenser unit that needs to sit somewhere on the site?
Yeah, it would sit, we have one, we go to the site plan.
One is shown.
Yeah, we have one on the side of the garage or in the back of the garage.
You say site plan, which sheet are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't think the site plan, I don't think you guys have the site plan.
No.
We have the top, or you can say the topo. Let's see, you have the topo with T6. I don't think you have, but yeah, you go back to that one, Glenn, the last one before. You can see, well, at least you can see, yeah, there's one condenser in the back half of the house and then behind the garage. So there's two condensers right now.
I see one condenser behind the garage. Where was the other one?
Up
Above the laundry room.
Yeah, that little kind of nook.
Just that completely.
There above the washer and dryer.
Mm. Gotcha. So it's a 2-zone system, one for living and one for those bedrooms over there?
Yeah, they'll share. My guess is they're gonna, that unit there will do the 2 bedrooms and half of that center area of the house, and the other will do the same, that the 2 bedrooms, and that they'll kind of both work on that center portion of the house.
Well, is this something that's in the process of HVAC consultants, or is this kind of a design build thing? Because it feels like you might be short a unit.
Yeah, I think once we get the Title 24 done, we can get that nailed down.
Where I'm really going with this is showing them accurately on the site plan also, and if they need to be screened from your own view, particularly like I look at that one you had north of the laundry, and I think that's not something I want to look at from the master tub area or here. So if that ends up being located somewhere else in the yard, which I think it could be further away from the house, and some type of enclosure for that, I think would be a nice idea.
Yeah, I think the one, I think it would be pushed back enough. It'd be like those tall, skinny ones that'd be pushed back enough that you wouldn't see it from your view is kind of towards the northeast from that bathtub. And I think we would push it back enough where you really wouldn't see that.
Well, I'll leave you with that comment.
Okay.
again, I think you might be short a unit. It seems like you've got guest bedrooms on the southern and southwest corner of that house, and that's a unit with a living space, doing a lot of work for that living space and those guest bedrooms. And we'll see how that could be done with one unit. So solar panels, so I see some of that on some of your drawings, but I don't know that they're not shown now with any tilt or angle or stanchions or rails or anything. And I have a fear that that's a bit of a pipe dream how they're being shown now, flat on the roof. And so a couple questions are like, what is that really the limit of solar panels? There's only 6 for the project, or are there 50? And 2, what are the colors of the rails, the frames, the stanchions? And then 3, did we see a color of the roof material or a spec here? This material sample?
I don't think so.
Can we?
Yes.
And can it not be white?
I think it's called out as gray.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Chris, I hadn't noted that you had that called as gray. I think gray, a light gray is reasonable to me. Something, most of the rock in that area, there's some of the areas in the neighborhood that have a lot of rust and a lot of iron in the rock, but in that particular stretch, it's pretty light gray. So it seems like a reasonable color.
I've seen light gray up there, and it has worked pretty well. But wouldn't mind seeing a color sample of it. There's some light grays out there that don't work very well, and some grays that are a bit more medium, cool gray that work a little better than a light to white gray.
No problem.
Trash enclosure, that seems pretty critical to me to show that and plan for that and allow for that. That driveway is minding a couple of setbacks there, and there's room for it. However, I think it should be shown and represented and planned for and screened with landscape.
Okay, noted from an earlier comment on south.
Yeah.
Sorry, on the northwest corner of the house. I'm always about 90 degrees off on that lot from where I think I'm aiming, so I get my descriptions wrong.
Yeah, well, close enough. I think your front door is facing the south, and yep. That's all I had, folks.
Thank you, Sean.
Yep.
My question is kind of taking some of Sean's comments a little further. As I look at the roof plan on S7, it looks like there's 2 parallel parapet walls near the edge of each roof. And then it's called out as a metal roof gutter, but the profile is shown really thin. I think you really need to carefully develop a section that would go through the living room, just from 4 feet inside the living room glass to the outside of the fascia, where you show the 2 level roofs. You show where you're going to be putting blinds in the interior, because depending on which way the rafters run, you can only sink them between rafters in one direction, not in both directions. So there's probably a structural issue that needs to be addressed if you want to have recessed motorized blinds there. But then I also question, as we look at the fascia where you call out a metal roof gutter and you show the roof just sloping 1/4 inch towards those edges, how big does that gutter need to be to carry all of the water off of these big roofs to just 4 or 5 downspout and chain? Well, I take it back, there's maybe 8 downspout chains. But I just think it's an item that needs to be addressed more specifically, because that could definitely affect the size of your fascias and the look of the roof on this house.
Yeah, we have a structural design in place to address exactly what you talked about with those recessed blinds. but we can
Amazing
still-
how sometimes a recessed blind can control the entire structural pattern of a house.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
definitely true. So yeah, I can provide that detail and also the gutter detail.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion? Sean?
I'll make a motion to, I guess we're denying, is it a denial of the project or?
It's a
Do a little
continuation
motion.
with further
see it
study
again.
based on comments.
I'm sorry, one more time, David?
It's basically a restudy or continuance.
Yeah, so to continue the project until we get a little more information. There was a list of, yeah, a few folks.
Right, I have the list. We'll include the list and make sure that they have them.
Yeah, okay.
Good, thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
That was Tom Dosey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And I'd like to make a comment to the applicant that we didn't really talk about. I think it's a great project. I think we're just trying to make it better. I like the materials. I like the massing. I like where it's going. We just need some more details to really make sure you're going to build what you really want.
Yeah, I second that.
Well, thank you, Tom and Sean. I appreciate that comment. Can I just, for the sake of clarity, so we'll have a list, and again, obviously, this is the first time I've gone through something like this, so it's new to me. The list will be what we need to address. And I guess this is an end around way of specifically asking the question about the garage, because I want to make sure that we're past that before we work on some of these other details.
I think that's a good question. We didn't discuss the garage too much.
It was a really good presentation, my recollection, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I guess, should we spend a minute on that now, Tom?
I think we should, because it could significantly affect the resubmittal.
Yeah, agreed.
It would be a whole start over for us.
Yeah.
I had one thought about the garage, and looking at the site plan, it looks like they just kind of drew the driveway straight from the garage to the street. And if there's any ability in there, since they had the garage not exactly parallel to the street, but to bring it in on the side and maybe it curves down towards the garage, and that would allow them to put some kind of, so it's not a straight visual barrier in, but or some landscape areas that would kind of soften, that straight on view of the garage.
Glenn, you might bring in that.
We're at the study.
Yeah, maybe that the site plan's elusive. I think, are you talking about the landscape plan, Tom?
I would say look on Fierro's plot plan.
Yeah.
It's labeled T6.
T6, yeah. Tom, I like your idea, and I had considered that early also. What I thought is it's
Go back.
probably feels a little tighter in real life than they have there. However, wait, one more.
One more forward. No,
Other way.
there.
There you go.
Or even the grading plan there.
I think what you're talking about is something, oops. Tom, are you talking about doing something like this?
Yeah, or, right, either that direction or the other direction, where the entrance is a little bit closer to the walkway coming in. Some way, if it would work grade wise, just visually try to mitigate that straight on view of the garage from the street.
Well, I think we could do that you know, if it's going downhill to the east, I don't know how much screen, and then if you're talking about on the southwestern edge of the driveway, having some sort of screening material, whether it's landscaping or big boulders, etc. We could do that. I don't know. It would seem odd to me to have, there's not a ton of room there. I don't know how much space there is. Is that 25 feet or something?
Yeah, I don't think it's a ton of room either, but I did wonder if you couldn't do something that did a bit more like that and then end up with some opportunity for screening.
Right.
Something
Exactly.
here.
I think visually that would be the way to solve that problem.
Yeah.
The question is
That's
practically, how much of a curb can we put in there? I think we could agree to that. Can I have the driveway in that? I don't know the distinction between a setback and the no build zone. I don't know the vocabulary.
No build here.
So can I have the driveway where you have it drawn right now, Sean?
Yes, but not, I think the city has tightened up on doing anything in this zone here.
But so we
Yeah.
could go to that where you have it drawn. So
I think so.
I think we could accommodate that.
Right,
And I
you
don't-
can't
I
do
don't-
anything in here.
I don't think you'd want to put anything in there because then the curve gets to be too steep. I think this is a really good solution here, that you've got a gentle curve to it and some area for some good sized landscaping between the driveway and the entry walkway, and that will really screen that door.
Mhm.
Sold.
And I think your grades work out pretty well with your finished floor and your grade right here, where this seems like the direction to go. I think it's going to be more difficult to curve it that direction.
Right.
Yeah, and it solves the screening problem as well.
Mhm.
Okay.
So,
Chris and I
yeah.
can do that, no problem.
And that's my opinion is that, yeah, I agree. The code for the bylaws and the HOA requirements are written in a way where they would prefer everybody's garage doesn't face the street, but it's challenging out there and it's not possible to do on every lot there. And yeah, so I think doing a little bit more might help that a little bit. And I don't really have a problem with it, but I'd be open to what other folks say.
Oh, I think this is a great solution. I can support that. Okay.
From a
Great, thank
timeline
you.
perspective, what's the protocol then? Do we show up again for round 2 in 2 weeks or a month or
Well,
whatever?
Jamie, you need to revise plans and get them to me, so we'll reschedule it, but we
Okay.
can talk tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, just work that out with staff.
Okay, we'll do. All right. Thanks very
Okay,
much.
thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you also, Chris. Item number 5. 979 Gene Autry LLC, who's the property owner for, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm going to say Hecate Energy Desert Storage 1 LLC for a major architectural application for landscaping and perimeter wall design for the development of a 20 megawatt battery storage facility in a leased area on the southern end of a larger developed 3.6 acre site located at 979 South Gene Autry Trail. Could we have a staff report, please?
Here you go, Chair. Is it full screen that you can see the?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. All right, so the project, as you mentioned, is Hecate Energy Desert Storage. They are proposing to do a 20 megawatt battery storage facility in a 2,836 square foot leased area. So the area that they're asking for is currently part of the Southwest Boulder and landscape supply at the corner of Gene Autry and Mesquite. So the project was reviewed by the Planning Commission in December, and they approved a conditional use permit to allow the battery storage unit to be there. So they have the entitlement already. The Architecture Review Committee is now to look at the landscaping, the perimeter landscaping, and the design of the wall, which will go around the the battery storage to screen it. The project has been before the Airport Land Use Commission and they approved it back in October. So when the Planning Commission reviewed the project, they had some recommendations to the AAC. And one is that the ground cover be a minimum of 3/8 gravel instead of decomposed granite. They wanted a climbing vine or plant that would go on the wall that would soften, and they are requesting that the ARC review that or give the applicant suggestions, and that street trees be a 36-inch box size. There was also some discussion about the Palo Verde tree that they're proposing. Seems to be getting some disease now and then. So is that the most appropriate tree? The Planning Commission would like to ask the ARC. And then an irrigation plan, which the staff will review whenever that is prepared. So to give you an aerial photograph review of where we're looking at, the 20,000 square foot leased area is here on the corner of Gene Autry and Mesquite in the red box. The business will function and have their display of rocks and boulders as currently is, and their trucks will be able to circulate behind the building and out onto Gene Autry Trail. I have a series of photo simulations of what the project looks like. It's a series of 13 containers that you'll see here. They are set back far from Gene Autry Trail. We've worked with the applicant to move them away from the street so that they are more screened. So they contain a battery container, which is 53 feet long, a transformer, and then a switchgear enclosure. The heights of them are 9'10", 9'6", and then 12 feet tall. So the zone, the M1 zone allows for walls to be at a height of 8 feet. They're proposing that the walls be 7 feet. So looking at this other simulation, it shows the Eisenhower substation, which this basically is when the grid is producing, overproducing power, it will flow into the battery storage. And then when the grid needs power, it will exit out of the batteries and be supplied to the Eisenhower substation for the SCE grid. So in looking at the other corners of the lot, across the street to the southeast is a storage unit facility, and we have some other photo sims for that, a vacant lot, and then the substation here. So I want to mention that how the grades work. If you're at the corner and you go west towards the mountain on Mesquite, the road slopes down. So this will sit higher. The wall will sit higher than the road itself, probably about 3 to 4 feet. And then on Gene Autry, the project sits a little bit lower. So you go down into the parking lot right now from Gene Autry. There is a site plan in your packet showing how the units are set 32 feet off of the property line, and the dashed black line is a masonry wall that will encircle the perimeter of the project, and then a chain link fence with 3 slider gates to gain access into the site. Staff worked with them to return the wall so that when you drive down Gene Autry Trail, it provides some screening, opaque screening, so that you could not see into the utility yard. This is a closer view of the sliders, the sliding gate, and the chain link fence along the north property line. Once again, is a photo simulation of what it will look like. You'll notice that there are street trees around the perimeter. There's an area on the inside of the utility yard that will remain landscape free. Now on to some simulations of what the corner will look like. You'll notice that there's a series of agaves and low lantana and other plants that will enhance the corner. You have a detailed landscape plan that's in your packet, focusing on the corner here. There are borders that will contain the decomposed granite or the 3/8 inch rock that the Planning Commission is asking for in a gold color and a gray color. The trees, as we mentioned, along the perimeter are to be 36-inch box. And does the ARC feel that the Palo Verde is the appropriate tree? So there's bougainvillea and other types of plantings, boulders and rocks along the frontage. You'll notice that in this slide, the wall has pilasters with caps, and then a detail of some of the precision blocks are protrude out, providing shade and relief, and then other sections of the wall are the precision block themselves. Here's a greater detail of the design of the wall and the landscaping. So as I mentioned, when you come down Gene Autry Trail, you'll see that the masonry wall returns so that it provides some screening. And in this photograph, it shows the detail of the wall and the chain link fence, and then also the containers themselves. They're a gray color so that they blend in with the surroundings. And here's a greater other detail of the 7-foot CMU wall. So in conclusion, as I mentioned, the Planning Commission approved the CUP. It meets the city's goals of providing essential utility facilities. We are seeking the ARC's recommendations on the street tree types, the landscaping, the climbing plant to soften the wall, and then staff supports the project. So that concludes my report, Chair, and the applicant is available.
Thank you, Glenn. Before we have questions from the committee for staff, can we ask Tom Dosey to address the question of the Palo Verde trees?
Thank you, Chairman. I think the Palo Verde trees themselves, there's different varieties of them. The museum hybrid is a hybridized tree that's faster growing. You see it used throughout the valley regularly. They do sometimes have problems with wind damage or blowing over, but there are other Palo Verdes, the blue Palo Verdes, the Praecox, that are a stronger type tree that might be more suitable. I'm not familiar with the disease that was mentioned in the report, but I think the Palo Verdes could work. When I reviewed the plan, I would request, whether we stick with Palo Verdes or another variety, that they continue the trees further north along Gene Autry, almost to the entrance where you turn in, because as people are coming south, you'll still be able to see those container units, as you're driving south on Gene Autry. And I think it would, rather than have that large density of landscaping just around the corner and starting where the storage units are, I think the landscape treatment should continue up to that driveway to the entrance. Project.
Tom, I've noticed a lot of diseased Palo Verdes both at the reserve and at Bighorn. And I don't know if it's maybe the water that they're getting or the type they used, but specifically in those two neighborhoods, a lot of them are dying.
Yeah, and sometimes it is the summer watering, or when they water in the winter times too, they overwater and it allows borers to get in. But we could make some suggestions for some other alternatives. I don't know if is there any overhead wires there that'll be connecting across, David, that we have to be aware of, or conditions where the trees can't get too tall?
The connection to the substation is underground.
Okay, so there would be no limits where they're gonna have to trim.
Okay, now we can do our regular thing and questions from the committee for staff.
I do.
Sean?
Yep. Was there any talk about like safety for these batteries, or what types of
Safety as far as hazards or fire hazards.
Explosive hazards, fire hazards, and this project reminds me of a fuel logistics center. It was proposed several years ago at the north side of the 10, and that was definitely a concern with containment and fire suppression systems, security for break-ins and sabotage and stuff like that.
Right. So the Planning Commission reviewed an environmental report that was done and determined that there was no safety hazards from these battery storage. Remember that the ARC is limited to a certain review about the landscaping and perimeter walls. So some of the items that the Planning Commission requested, like they requested a bond be placed with the city for removal. The lifespan of the batteries are 30 years, and the Planning Commission wanted to make sure that they would be disposed of properly. I didn't include all of the conditions that the Planning Commission added to the project, but the fire department did review the project and determined that there was no hazard substance, or the fire suppression would be sufficient. And also the Planning Commission asked for a security plan, which, the ARC would not review that.
Unless that security plan has to do with site lighting, which was one of my questions, like can't quite tell what's going on here with lighting.
Right, there was a lighting plan that the Planning Commission reviewed. I should have included it.
Yeah, in the site plan, it shows 38 poles that are 13 feet tall, plus wall-mounted lights on all the perimeter CMU walls.
Is there photometrics?
Right,
No.
so the very last plan on your packet is the photometric plan. And the plan that shows the wall and the container units also includes the lighting, which is the next to last page.
Thanks, Glenn.
Glenn, a question I have. I know there's issues with Caltrans and things, but can we ask that they remove the driveway that's been abandoned, that they remove the driveway cut in the sidewalk?
Yes, the engineering department will require that they remove that. As you know, anything with Caltrans takes a long time, and engineering did not want to hold up the project, 2 years waiting for them to close the driveway off, but that is in the works.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes, I'm here. This is James Damon. I'm the Director of Development for Hecate Grid. We are the applicant. I didn't prepare a presentation. Glenn did a very nice job, but I, along with Shruti Ramaker, who is our contracted third-party consultant who supports us on permitting and engineering, and from Stantec, her firm prepared all of the drawings that you have in front of you. So we're available to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you. At this point, there would be public comments from the audience. David, do we know if there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this project?
No request to speak, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if somebody pops up, let us know. Committee questions for the applicant.
I'll start.
Who is that? Robert?
How wide are these access gates on the north side of the property?
Is that on the, I don't have the drawing right in front of me. Is that to scale on the drawing, Glenn, or?
Let me pull it up.
Do we need to, okay.
Let's see.
I believe they're 24 feet wide.
Right, they're 24 feet wide because of the requirement for fire access. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Right. Yeah.
And
Okay.
so what is the little circles with the line? That is just a symbol for the chain link fence. Is that right? It looks like that's what it is. I see that now.
Yes.
Okay. I'll ask the questions and then I'll go back and comment. The other question I have is on one of the sections showing the storage unit. That's page 1 of 2, E201. It shows the battery unit next to the transformer, and the battery unit in the staff report gives a height of 9'10". But in that section, it looks like it's sitting on top of some concrete piers of some sort that gives it additional height. So it's actually higher. Is it higher than 9'10"?
Right. So member Rutman, I did not include that in the slide presentation, but it, James, you may want to describe, they do sit on concrete piers.
Correct. It's basically a concrete platform. I don't have the exact dimension height in front of me. Typically, what we've seen at other projects is around the order of about 8 inches, 9 inches.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you have anything to add, but.
That's consistent with my understanding.
Yeah, they look like they're higher than that in the section, but I'll take your word at it. And the units, do they come as standard color? Are they gray? Are they white? I thought in the staff report it was mentioned that they were painted white, but then when Glenn made his presentation, I thought he said they were gray. So I'm just curious what color.
So they do come in a standard color. They're not bright white. I don't know exactly how I would describe the shade, but they're not quite gray either. And they're also not really off-white or cream. They're somewhere between white and gray.
Okay. So I'll go back to my question about the sliding gates. As you're coming down Gene Autry heading south, you have this huge parking lot, and that whole view looking south is completely exposed. And I appreciate that you extended the block wall, the 20 feet into the property, but I don't think that's adequate screening of this. And I think in between the gates, you're going to need to do block wall, that a chain link fence is not going to be adequate.
So Robert, you're mentioning in between here where I'm pointing.
Yeah, between wherever the location of the sliding gates are, you need to fill it in with solid, and at least up to where the Southwest Boulder has their wall that blocks off the back lot. Because that is a huge, wide, open view.
I think that wall's getting cut shorter, Robert. It won't be there in its entirety.
Well, that's true because they have a fire department turnaround coming into that somehow.
Right. So along here, between this slider and then the slider that comes down the main driveway, you're saying?
Yeah, however far it continues, there's 3 gates, so it's going to occur at least in 2 locations and maybe 3.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff?
Okay, just on the gate issue, just a quick question. Is it truly a fire requirement to have 24-foot sliding gates?
We need to maintain 24 feet of access so that 2 fire trucks can pass each other, essentially, if one's turning around. So that's a fire department requirement, and that's a code requirement.
Then what am I missing here? Because how does a fire truck, like another 8 or 10 feet away, I have to scale from this drawing, are the storage units? So it's not like a fire truck's going to drive inside this. What am I feel like I'm not seeing something.
Right. So the fire truck would drive into the center using the center access point. And at that point, the truck doesn't need to go in between the containers. The equipment that they have is sufficient that and long enough that it can extend from the truck or hydrant to get to the furthest point in the project if they need to.
You have to maintain a certain length of hose pull in order for the fire department to be able to access around the perimeter of the project.
So, but you're expecting a fire truck would pull in the gates where there's a bit more of an open area in the center of where the storage compartments are.
Let me get to a site plan here.
It would seem like that would be the only place you would need a gate, and one isn't shown there on this plan.
It's kind of offset and behind a unit. It's not centered on that is where I was going.
Right. So there should be one here.
And I don't see any use for the other three.
Yeah, instead there's one here and there's one here and there's one down here.
Didn't fire review this?
Yes, the fire department provided conditions of approval to the planning commission.
And that maybe didn't get addressed?
Well, the fire marshal reviewed it and then felt that it was sufficient as presented to them. I don't know, I did not have specific discussions with them about the locations of the gates.
I would guess that, and we can confirm this, but I would guess that the sliding gates in those locations are primarily to maintain the 150-foot hose pull access from those areas. So they can enter and still be able to access those areas to the west and east of the project using the 150-foot hose pull.
Okay.
So the western gate, they may not be able to drive into, but they need access to get if there's a fire at the very western unit.
Yeah, and I don't know, but then the 24-foot question mark comes up. Is a big wide hose.
Yeah, the 24-foot is usually for a fire truck. If you've got, the gates at the east and west end of it, you're not going to be able to pull a fire truck into that gate. It's just to provide access to that area potentially. Maybe it can be done with 10-foot, I don't know.
So if we don't need 24 feet, and we'd have to defer back to the fire marshal, to be honest. If we don't need 24 feet, then we certainly won't build a 24-foot wide access. I don't know, Glenn, if this is more back up to a question to the fire marshal, but.
Right, I mean,
defer to you.
if the ARC recommends that the gate openings be less, then we can review that with the fire marshal and determine a smaller opening is more appropriate, which would allow you to provide more of a CMU wall or some other masonry wall that would screen it, the interior.
A question I have for the applicant is, when I look at the site plan, I think I'm reading it right, that the entire site is gravel. There's no hard surface per se, no paving, it's all gravel. In an area like this where there's a lot of blown sand and wind, the gravel's gonna just get covered up by the sand, which you can see directly across the street at the Edison substation, that their gravel is a mess. Is there a more appropriate material to use for ground cover?
It's on the exterior, on the exterior of the site or interior of the
No,
site?
inside of your perimeter fence around the units. It looks like it's gravel between the units, gravel on the east side and west side, and gravel between the ends of the units and this fence we're talking about. Is that correct?
I believe it's to maintain permeable surfaces so that we can maintain stormwater requirements, so that we don't increase stormwater flows off-site with more impermeable areas.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicants?
Yeah, maybe. Glenn, can you pull up that site plan one more time?
So this plan?
Yeah, that's fine. That area to the very east side, but
Sorry.
any of these will work. Yep, that's fine. This area over here, that's a lot of gravel. As I look at the landscape plan, and there was a rendering or two that show view, particularly in this direction from a street corner where a lot of people enter town as they're coming from the east towards the west, and they get hung up at that light. There's two right turn lanes there before they go north on Gene Autry, and they stare across at this street corner and look at this. And so I wonder, you know, should there be more tree opportunity on that corner there? And I don't know why that's kept so quite open. And then I also wonder, like, what is all this real estate for? And can some of this be used for landscaping also? Question mark.
And to take that question a little further, the wall that's between the area Sean's talking about and Gene Autry, can that wall be moved to the west somewhat? So there's some more land for landscaping between the face of the wall and Gene Autry.
I believe we have some limitations with visibility on the corners. That was based on the code that we understood that we couldn't plant large trees on the corner.
Which I think that's a really good point, because I'm sure there's this 30-foot cutback area at a minimum. And so I think then Tom's point about relocating this wall back to this further, if possible, to allow more opportunity for a layering of landscape material. Yeah, these things are tall. Did I read that right also, that they're 9'10", 9'6", and 12-foot high? So these all these vary?
No, let's clarify that. So in the center of the project is the switchgear, and that's anticipated to be the tallest portion of the project. The two smaller containers on the south side of the larger actual storage units are an inverter and a transformer. And those are the shortest components of the project.
And
so originally,
what's the height on those?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I think I want to say 8 feet, 6 feet.
No,
So we
I
have
think
that
they're
measurement.
9'6".
9'6".
9'6". It's shown on page 8.
So originally what we did was we had the storage units closer to the road, and basically the layout flipped.
Gotcha.
But because they're shorter, we flipped the layout basically. I guess I appreciate what you're saying about moving the wall and allowing more landscaping. I'm just trying to understand what that would achieve other than just us planning more landscaping. Because if we're building a wall already, and we're building, along Gene Autry, and we're extending the wall and probably now extending it even further to the west, how will additional landscaping, what purpose would that serve other than us just planting more trees?
Because the landscaping will be taller than the walls. The wall's only 7 foot, your units are 10 foot plus. So that 3 feet of unit that shows above the wall would be screened with the landscaping.
Yeah, that one seems obvious to me. Moving the wall and allowing for more screen of the landscape, I thought I was being pretty clear on that too. There's a direct view and a giant hole here at a major intersection where most people are traveling westbound from Dinah Shore or northbound, coming from 111 and cutting through and taking Gene Autry north. So in order to fill the giant hole, but respect the 30-foot corner cutback area for visibility of people traveling eastbound and southbound, moving that wall helps to create that layered landscape right there. Because the only thing that could possibly screen the height of these buildings is landscape, because the wall's only 7 feet and everything else here is either twice that height almost or slightly higher, a couple feet higher.
And Glenn, could you put up the aerial photograph that includes as much of the substation as we can see? mean, you can kind of see it in this one. Look how their wall is staggered with breaks in the wall. And instead of one long 200 and something foot long wall, it's in sections that step forward and step back. I think it would be really nice if that was what happens to that wall along Mesquite Avenue. So there are portions that could certainly be brought closer to the curb and create a staggering effect of the surface of the face of the wall. And you can see how they did their corner here. You know, that's exactly what we're talking about, that the wall pulls back into the site and then you can get your landscaping that's out of the view corridor on the corner.
Yeah, because I would argue a 30-foot corner cutback area is probably realistically more like that. So they have all this area where they could have layered and screened.
I think just to understand, if we stagger the walls, are you suggesting that for the corner? Or
I'm
for
suggesting it for the length of Mesquite Avenue.
The issue that we have is that the site is horribly constrained in terms of what we can put on site and achieve our capacity requirements, the interconnection requirements that Hecate has agreed to with Southern California Edison. And
I
so
wouldn't pull any walls closer to your equipment. I would pull the sections of walls that we're moving closer to the curb. So in effect, it's giving you a little more room behind the walls.
Would there be
Glenn,
enough room
I was
for
going to say, Glenn, is
landscaping?
that, yeah, I was going to say, Glenn, does
Well,
how
I
does that-
think that was going to be my next landscape. Instead of putting these trees exactly at 30 or 45 foot spacings, cluster two trees together in one spot, 3 trees together in another, 2 in another, and then your walls can stagger in the gaps between the trees.
And I wonder, so that was going to be my comment also, that this rigidity it just looks, there's nothing natural looking about it. And I don't know that as we've just looked at that previous aerial, the one prior to this, it seemed to show that the neighbors' projects look a bit more naturalized and not so rigid in their placement. Okay, you could argue this guy didn't do that along right here, but at least there's some variation of what's going on around it, and it's not quite so obvious. I would say the same thing happens along this guy. I'm not claiming this to be beautiful landscape in front of the public storage area here, but I think if we could do something like that where there was a little more staggering and grouping of trees. And sorry, Glenn, can I ask you to jump back to that other slide? Yeah, so I think what Tom's saying is maybe some portions of this wall, instead of being here, this could jump forward a bit. And I wonder if you'd made a choice like that, could a grouping of trees and maybe somewhat different species, not all the same, and then could you sneak in 1 or 2 or something like that behind here that sort of acted as a canopy over top of the wall in places?
Okay.
Just looking a bit more naturalized.
Okay, I like that idea.
And I think the idea of a couple different varieties of trees would be good. Just so we didn't get into that problem of disease or anything. And even looking at the street across, at the Edison, they've used some large olive trees. And so another good screening tree in place of so they could actually use the olive trees as accent along there. And another good screening trees that would give some dense screening is the Texas ebony tree, the Pithecolobium flexicalis. And that maintains a dark green evergreen tree, and it's manageable in growth. And then the olive trees could be the accent trees. So I think there is some opportunity. And even in that open area, Sean, like you mentioned earlier, where the big gravel void is, you know, if there's a way to get some trees back there so you have that layering effect, I think that makes a lot of sense as well.
And you, Tom, you brought it up earlier that, you know, on a site plan, naturally, it makes sense. You just stop right there, but gosh, there's a whole lot of view coming right in.
Yeah, I think that whatever the landscape theme needs to be carried all the way down.
At least, and you know, when you look through and you see these trees out here on the, I love this annotate tool, by the way. You guys are going to revoke my privileges soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Glad I got
wondering how
this.
you got a hold.
Yeah. But you can see how these trees, it would be nice if they never disappeared from now until eternity, because those are really doing a lot to screen that view as you come down southbound on Gene Autry right there, until you hit about this line where you really start to see through. And so it would make sense that at least carrying that landscape up to that first point of entry into that parking lot would make a lot of sense.
Is that,
That's outside of our lease.
That's outside of our lease area. We're limited to the box that Glenn showed you, the 20,000 square feet. I don't know that the landowners are going to allow that. That's a pretty long area. I mean, eyeballing it, it's, what, 40 feet of taking up additional land from them.
Did you say 40 feet?
I mean, if you're asking us to continue, I don't know the measurement, I don't have it off the top of my head, but if you're asking us to continue from that tree all the way to that entrance, that's
Mhm.
More
good
than
distance. So,
I think that's
well, it's
too
more than
close.
40 feet. I don't know, maybe it's 100 feet now that I'm looking.
Oh, it's at least 100 feet if you look at the site plan.
Yeah, I think if you
So-
counted parking spaces, it's just going to be 200 feet or 160 feet or something.
You're also blocking the visibility of their business. I mean, this is we have to coexist, right? Our project has to exist on their land, and they have to be able to operate their business and continue to be profitable, right? So you're asking us to basically block the visibility of their business.
Well, this would come up sooner or later anyway. And I'm going to ask you if this is a code enforcement issue, because I can guarantee you that this original landscape plan for this building wasn't 100% open landscaping right here. So I don't think we're asking you to block their business or 100% coverage along this island here. But I mean, I would say that there could be some compromise and some screening of a few vignettes there that might help screen that parking lot. If I just had to guess, the amount of shade coverage that would have been required for a parking lot of this side versus what's here today I'm sure they've lost material over time, and that not allowed to just get rid of all your landscape. And not
Would we be able to achieve the same goal of at least screening our project by wrapping our landscaping and wall around the corner as we have planned, but just add more interest as opposed to, just because it's outside of the purview of our project in terms of, we have no site control of that area. Hecate does not. That's as James mentioned, we're limited to the rectangle that they have leased in this area. So I think it would be really difficult to get buy-in since it's outside of the purview of our project. So wondering if we could achieve the same goal of screening in terms of a compromise and wrap our landscaping around the corner where the existing wall or the proposed wall will be wrapping around on the kind of northeastern side of the project.
You're talking about like here and doing something to mitigate this?
Oh, no.
Not there.
Along our perimeter.
The north perimeter.
So in other words, we're going to move that wall closer to the containers like you asked for. We're going to add a more staggered, layered landscaping, right? And then we would wrap it around to sort of meet the point of exactly
Exactly right in there.
I feel like that would achieve the same objective here of blocking,
If
blocking
you
the
look at,
visibility as folks come down Gene Autry.
How's
you
that
look
gonna
at
block?
this,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you look at Street View 3 in our simulations, that's, that one right there. You can see that it's not highly visible going in with the existing landscaping. These are recent photos that were taken that we used for the renderings. You can see that you can't really see past the existing landscaping that's here right now. So if we were to kind of dress up this northern portion it's hard to describe since I'm using my cursor here and you guys can't see it, of course.
Use your
But
annotate tool. It's lots of fun.
No, we were seeing your cursor.
I think that's Glenn's cursor.
That's actually mine.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
If you could,
In that area where you have
Serena,
your-
if you can direct me, I'll move my cursor. So,
Sure. It's farther south towards the facility, basically where the short shrubs are, where there's it appears to be grasses. Yeah, in that area. If we can plant wrapping into our facility in that area where you can see like a piece of heavy equipment, I think right there somewhere behind those plants. Yeah, right in there, all through there, from the corner of our perimeter wall all the way in through there if we were to plant.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. So you're saying you'd bring landscaping up through here.
Yeah.
But what I don't think this is nicely represented, like this is shrub material. And yeah, it's slightly overgrown and hasn't been trimmed in a little while, but it's not a tree or a screen tree. It's just shrub material. It's like somebody standing there for a minute while a car goes by and it's blocking the view in there. Like the reality is that it's not really blocking that view into there. I don't see how that's even possible.
I think maybe our solution, I mean, I can totally understand that this land is not part of their lease. Maybe we could ask staff to check with code enforcement to see if, separate from this project, if the landowner for the rest of it needs to enhance and replace landscaping that should be there that has disappeared over the years.
right, staff can definitely look at go back and do some research on the original site plan.
But it seems to me that James is totally getting what we're talking about for staggering the walls, layering the landscape, doing it more natural. And I think that's a good solution.
I'm getting that, and I agree with you. I actually really like the idea of staggering the wall and staggering the landscape. I think that's cool. Where I have a little bit of trouble is extending the landscaping up to the north. So if a good next step is for Glenn to do his research, then I'm fine with that.
And then if you were to submit with one gate instead of 3, and we try to see if that flies with the fire department, that would help substantially for knocking down the view across that existing parking lot onto the north end of your machines.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more discussion or do we have a motion?
But just one
Sorry,
other,
Robert, go ahead.
yeah, just another comment on the screening on the north side. If we decide to go put the condition of having the block walls extend along that north property line, I'll call it, where the gates are, they too need to have some sort of screening on them. Because if it's just chain link, you're going to still see right into it. So I'd like to have that as a condition as well.
Agreed. Do you want to make a motion?
Hold on. Wait, can we have a little, I wanted to ask.
Sure, I'm sorry, Sean. All you need.
Just want to talk about lighting. As I'm looking at this photometric study, I'm still a little unclear, so maybe you guys can present it to us, or the lighting, or what's the height on these poles? Are there cut sheets for these fixtures where we can look at I see lumens on here.
They're in the staff report. I saw them.
So here, this is the light type.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Right. So these are the light cut off LED lights. And I don't.
And in the staff report, those are called out as being on 13-foot tall poles. And the other ones to the left there are mounted on the back side of the concrete block wall.
Right. I'm sorry, I didn't include the photometric plan in the presentation, but it is in your packet. It's the last sheet. You know, it's kind of hard to see.
I downloaded it from the agenda. seems like, and all these are shown in foot candles, if I'm reading this correctly?
Right, so we evaluate the foot candles based upon the outdoor lighting standards, and you'll see that there's no spill off of the property. And the lumens are 4, 5, 6. So they don't seem overly bright to, as compared to like a service station or under canopy or so.
But I also do wonder though, like if there's a fixture there, I was looking at the legend and didn't see those cut sheets a minute ago, but I look at the lumens and some of these, there's 4,779 lumens with these taller, the ones mounted on the 10-inch arm. Even the ones with not a ton of lumens, there's 2,561 lumens. And I go, wow, that's pretty crazy that by the time it hits the ground, 1 foot, 2 feet away, there's only 6 foot candles coming from that fixture. It seems somewhat difficult to fathom that that's even possible from a fixture that produces 4,779 lumens. I'm not a lighting expert or engineer, but that seems challenging, hard to believe. And then I wondered, like, is this part of the security plan that this does need to be lit up? So, well, I mean, it's not a park or dog park for nighttime use. Like, do we even really need all these lights, or can this thing be kept dark with maybe motion lights or something? So
motion lights, I think, could be something we could look into. I mean, you're talking about, $50 million worth of equipment, so it does need lighting of some form. But we can look at the lighting plan that we have is conceptual. So feedback is welcome. We can look at motion lighting. I can check with our asset management group to understand what we're doing at other projects in terms of lighting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. Like, I wonder if even the height of it, unless that's a security issue and it just being so tall on a post makes it more tamper-proof for you, that would make sense. I'm not sure, but if it didn't need to be lit or draw attention to itself at times, that might be nicer and better received. That's all I had, Tom.
Thanks, Sean. Anybody else have any other comments? Do we have a motion?
I can try.
Okay, Robert.
I move to approve with the following conditions. Along Mesquite, the perimeter wall is staggered and the landscaping revisited so that there's a more naturalized looking clustering of trees and plant material. The corner is cut back at the corner of Genotry and Mesquite, again, to achieve better and higher landscaping. The fencing along the north property line is revised to a solid block wall, with a similar design as the rest of the perimeter. The gates, possible, be reduced down to 1 24-foot wide sliding gate, and if not, look at another option instead of 3, or if you require 3, that the gates to the east and west are reduced in size if possible with the fire department. And then also to relook at the lighting so that it's not overlit. And it's really just a basic a lighting for security.
And can we add that as part of the landscaping that they use more than one variety of tree?
Yes, absolutely.
Robert, I don't know if you caught that, but also you had indicated replacement instead of cyclone fencing for the actual gate, a different material.
Thank you to add that as well, that it is screened in some way as well.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second
Wait,
that.
Sean is muted.
Question,
Yeah.
John?
Got it. I wanted to piggyback on that with just when we talked about the more than one species of the tree, can we expand on the landscape plan and show more than one size of tree? So they don't all come in at the same height and create almost the same vertical effect as what we were seeing in the plan view effect there, of them just being all strictly regimented. It would have a much more natural appearance if these were staggered a bit.
Variation is desired.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a second?
I'll second that.
Tom Dosey seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you,
Just
and thank you
one
both for.
clarification.
Sorry,
listening to
Tom?
Yeah,
Tom
We
was-
will see the landscape plan return for review, though, as part of that motion.
That's,
Or is that something we could look at a subcommittee?
We would accept that.
yeah, either we can, I mean, staff can work with a subcommittee if that is the committee's desire, or if you prefer to have it returned to the full body, that is also your pleasure.
I think to keep things moving along, staff working with the subcommittee. I
Landscape
know
subcommittee.
We all understand what the goal is.
I'll volunteer for that, Tom, if you need.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I'll volunteer, Sean and I.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Have a
guys.
great night.
You too.
Okay, that ends
New
our
Year.
agenda. Finishes the agenda. Do we have any committee member comments on any item at all? Sean?
David, I sent you a last minute email and I copied Rick, or I sent it to you and Rick Minyaris. I know I got a auto reply. He's out of the office until tomorrow, but any comment on the Racket Club Road deceleration design? Traffic, I forget what it's called.
Traffic calming.
Yeah, traffic calming. Mhm.
On the westerly end of Racket Club.
Yeah, and everything west of Palm Canyon.
Yeah, I checked with our city engineer on that. There really isn't any update. It's kind of an ongoing discussion that the city is still working through. But I can see what other details we can provide, either at your next meeting or just via email. We have a lot of comments about Racket Club generally, whether it's the westerly end or the speed along everything west of Farrell. So we're evaluating it as part of the general plan update and the circulation element. So we're looking at a variety of options for Racket Club, I guess is the point. And
yeah,
it's an ongoing discussion, I think.
I can throw in what I know. There's been on the part of Racket Club west of Palm Canyon, there have been speed studies done recently, and it's a 25-mile zone, and the speeds are close to 40 miles an hour going down the hill. The neighborhood has put in an application with Measure J to have traffic circles put in. And that was a plan that was developed by the city with the neighborhood several years ago. And so we'll just see what happens.
that's what where I'm going with that, Robert, is it seems like a lot of talk, but I don't see any real plan or implementation. So I'm wondering what would be the next step, or how something like that could get pushed along. It seems to be, I mean, it's not only the neighborhood that's there, and it's obviously Desert Palisades at the top of the hill there, and it feels like that corridor, including that sort of deceleration jogging, that there was a little bit of that maybe that helped a tiny bit, but not a lot. And now that that's become in use for a little bit, it's also started to deteriorate and dilapidate a bit to me. And now it's almost like, I don't know if it made it worse. The drive as you're going to or fro up there, but it's not pretty.
Not pretty. But those are never long-term solutions. That was the city's approach to do something inexpensively and test what was effective in terms of reducing traffic. The
Sure.
most effective was the first one, which was the uglier, but the curves were much more extreme, and it did reduce the traffic significantly. The speed of traffic, but not down to 25 miles an hour. The second one was a response to complaints by the neighbors that lost parking along Racket Club. And so that's what's in place now. And they did another speed study, which I just mentioned. And so we're still pushing to get the traffic circles. We think that will be effective in slowing traffic down, and also an opportunity to beautify Racket Club. So
yeah. So what's the next step on that?
well, Measure J, I think they're not going to be looking at that until April. David, maybe you know more about that whole process, but it has to go through Measure J first. They make recommendations to council, and then council approves. If it doesn't get the Measure J money, then it goes back to engineering and out of some other fund with the city.
Okay. Thanks, Robert.
Yep.
Okay, I know that David has some comments or information for us. David?
Yeah, so as far as staff's update, just wanted to let you all know, we talked about going digital a few months back. We're still working through a lot of the logistics with our online permitting software. So while we are getting closer, we're not there yet. And we had talked about going live in January, which is this month. And so we're obviously not there yet. So we expect, hopefully we'll start to finalize that here in the next month or so, with the launch date at the end of February. So just wanted to give you all that update. And as we get closer to that, kind of the plan to transition from delivering hard copy packets to going all digital, making sure you have the tools you need to do the work that you do. We've had other requests from other commissions on maybe a larger screen if that is necessary, whatever we got to do to make sure you're able to review the plans and do, make the decisions that you have to make. So just wanted to give you all an update on that. We still plan to go live with the fully digital packet and not deliver hard copy packets in the future, but technology being the way things go when you try and implement a new enterprise system, it does take some additional time sometimes. So we're still working through that. So I just want to let you all know that that is still in the works, and we still plan to go live with that. It's just not ready this month.
And you should get us all one of Sean's magic pens.
Maybe a training lesson on how that function works.
There you go.
I can give it to you now if you like.
Sean, if you want to do it, we're happy to
At
do
the
it.
top of the screen, when you guys were, and I don't know if it's, are you on Bluebeam now, David?
What's that?
Are you guys operating on Bluebeam now?
We will be using Bluebeam. Yeah.
Okay, but you weren't today for these presentations.
No, that's actually a Zoom function that anyone
Gotcha.
has when the screen is sharing. So
Yeah. At the top, there's that pull down. And if you just click on annotate, you can change the color of your pen and it'll just follow your cursor. And it's not super smart. If Glenn or somebody moves the presentation, unfortunately, your markings stay right where they were. And you have to remember to clear it, which I get yelled at by people in my office all the time. Can you please clear your marks? Because I forget and leave it up there, and it's just now graffiti in the wrong spot as the presentation goes on. So anyway, that's my quick lesson on that.
Well,
you're gonna love it.
Let me show you. If I share my screen, if someone wants to try it out, you can test it out yourself.
Yeah, so it's under view options and then annotate.
I'm sharing the screen.
Oh, cool.
And they're all different colors.
You should have never taught me this.
So there you go. That's how it's done.
Yep, and it all came along.
Yeah, so you see the different tools on the top. There's the toolbar. You can add text or draw. Or as Sean said, you can clear. It's a little trash can icon.
Yeah, you have to remember to clear or you're gonna get yelled at by the team.
That's cool.
Okay, thanks for the
Mhm.
lesson. So our next meeting is on Tuesday, January 18th. See everybody
next-
then.
The next meeting's gonna be really long because we're all gonna annotate.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay, take
Bye.
care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Mhm.